President Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, appeared in a federal court this morning. I think it was in Virginia, and entered not guilty pleas to 18 counts that have been filed against him by a federal grand jury. There are 8 counts of what they're calling transmission of national defense information. That means sharing it. And 10 counts of retention of national defense information, meaning that he had it in his possession. FBI agents had raided his house some time ago. I don't remember exactly, but they found they took several boxes out of there. They've also gone into his social media account and found a chat that he created after he took office. ABC News Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas has more.
Bolton now faces a long list of charges that could put him in severe legal jeopardy, and he's now the third enemy of President Trump to be indicted after former FBI Director James Comey and Attorney General of New York, who was recently hit with charges. Bolton has been indicted on 18 felony counts charged with illegally retaining and sharing classified information, much of it about national defense. Prosecutors claim that Bolton was taking copious notes while he was National Security Advisor in Trump's first term, and then putting those notes in the form of diaries. Prosecutors allege that those notes were full of classified information.
Yes, go ahead.
It just, one of the things, Ray, is, look, let me just ask you this question, I guess, to begin, and then we can have a further conversation. But what do you think this case has that maybe the other two didn't have?
That's a good question. So, for one thing, this case has the support of the Department of Justice where the others didn't. If you recall what Trump did on the other cases, I'm joking. What Trump did on the other cases is he brought in his own U.S. attorney to file those charges. The U.S. attorney wouldn't file those. In this case, an independent or appointed U.S. attorney took the case. Their office took the case. That just tells me this, that the Department of Justice felt like this case had some merit. I would say what it has similar to the other two, Letitia James and James Comey, is that it's a former Trump enemy, someone that Trump didn't like. It's a ticky-tack case. I've read the indictment, and what happened was this, Holly, that after Bolton took office, actually the day he took office, he created a group chat with his wife and daughter, and he was talking about what he was doing there. He was sharing information with his wife and daughter, of all people. He wasn't sharing it with the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or anything like that. I mean, should he have shared it? Probably not. But it was an inside thing, and he was sort of like almost joking with them. Hey, look, here's what I did today. Almost, he was creating a diary.
Right. So I have to tell you, speaking of the Wall Street Journal, they had a very, very pointed editorial opinion. So this is the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal that I would say has been pretty supportive of Republican agenda items, and they are in full-on support of Mr. Bolton. And they just say, first of all, the very first opening paragraph is, one lesson from Thursday's indictment is that opposing Donald Trump is a perilous business, but working for him can be equally as dangerous. So he did work for Donald Trump, right? So they address those diary notes, and they say that he was planning to write a book called The Room Where It Happened. And there is precedent for that. So Jimmy Carter's national security advisor wrote extensive journal entries that helped inform his memoir, Power and Principle. So there is precedent for that. And there's a review process on the Wall Street Journal side. He's been very clear. The White House reviewed it. The statements that he had in there. He had somebody from the White House who went through the entire book and did not find anything classified that should not have been released. So they're saying, look, he'll get his day in court, but the Wall Street Journal says, in our experience, he's a patriot who would do nothing to compromise national security. And they also say this: if Mr. Bolton had praised Mr. Trump in his book, it's safe to say he would not have been indicted.
Even if he had shared the same information,
Right.
Because of that, I didn't realize that there had been some clearance with the White House before
Yeah.
the book was published.
Yep.
And I would also say this: had he not published the book, we probably wouldn't be having the conversation, critical or not. I mean, taking the items and sharing them with his wife and daughter, I don't know that compromises national security or anything.
Well,
like
and
that.
especially it wasn't like a copy of the document. It was his written, memories of it. It was that diary entry that he was sharing, right? And there is a difference, and maybe it's a slight difference, and maybe it's one without much of a distinction. But it's interesting to me, right? That there are some people who are like, absolutely, he's a bad guy. That's what Trump called him today. He's just a bad guy. But remember, Donald Trump also faced some inquiries, at least.
He was indicted, right?
On holding classified information in his bathroom.
Right, yes. And that case would almost certainly have gone to trial by now had he not been elected in a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
That case was moving forward, although at a painfully slow pace, and the Department of Justice just couldn't get it to trial before he took office. He was indicted and charged in 4 different jurisdictions. One he went to trial and lost. The other 3 ended up getting dismissed because of the fact that he became the president and they couldn't prosecute him.
Right. So where does it go from here? So he has pleaded not guilty. Now what?
Yeah, so in federal court, it's a little bit different than state court. But the first hearing you do in federal court is you walk in, you say not guilty. People ask me, why do you plead not guilty? Because at that point, you don't know the evidence, and you haven't seen what the case is. You haven't seen what's going on. And a judge will almost, I can't even think of a situation where a judge would accept a guilty plea at the first hearing because nobody knows, nobody has received the police reports yet. Anyway, he appears in court this morning. He pleads not guilty. He walks out of court. They didn't set bail or take him into custody. And they will then set scheduling. So there will be a trial set, although it's sort of an artificial date, in about 90 days. So, January, February. And they'll say the judge will order the government to disclose all their case to the defense within 30 days, share what they call discovery, and then motions are due by 30 days before the trial. They'll set all these dates, none of which are going to be followed closely because this is a case that's going to take a little bit of time to sort out. But the law provides your right to a speedy trial, so the judge will set the speedy trial even though you can waive that down the road and say, hey, I'm not ready yet.
Interesting. So, look, I think it's interesting that we have Attorney General Pam Bondi who says she's going to prosecute everybody that's a threat to national security or no one is above the law. But it does feel like the people they're going after are people that have gotten crosswise with the White House.
And we're talking about, you're exactly right. We're talking about 3 indictments in, a week and a half.
Yeah.
Former FBI Director James Comey, who admittedly got sideways with Trump and was critical of him. He gets indicted, and he gets indicted for sort of similar conduct, although he was charged with lying to Congress about whether or not there was a leak in terms of the Russian influence on the election, whether he directed someone in his office to leak information about that when he was FBI director. Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, she was indicted based on some alleged fraud that she may have committed in connection with a loan on her house or something like that. I mean, those are the kind of things that. So, is there a crime committed? I don't know. Should you prosecute it? If you look historically, and even the Bolton case. Is this something that, and I was a prosecutor for 8 years, and we had to ask ourselves each time we'd have a case, even if the crime's committed, is this the kind of case that we file? Do you charge people with this crime? And not that that's definitive of how you decide to move forward, but you have to look at it. And these are cases that in my years of practice don't get charged. People don't get charged with these crimes. Let's face it. These are exceptions to that. That doesn't mean they didn't commit the crime, and maybe you're going to have to go to a jury on these cases. But if you look at them on their face, these are crimes that would never get charged normally.
Well, we'll see what happens.